I was sitting in the school pickup line when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look at it. Rowan had soccer at 4 and I was running the logistics in my head. Cleats in the trunk, snack packed, still needed to stop for gas. The kind of low-grade mental math that fills up the background noise of being a dad. Then I looked down. I need you to know I've been unhappy for a long time. I'm not coming home. I took what I needed from the account. Don't call me. That was it. No punctuation after account. No period. Like she couldn't even be bothered to finish the sentence before she finished us. I sat there with the line moving and somebody behind me honking, and I couldn't make my foot move to the gas. The woman in the minivan ahead of me had already pulled forward twice. I stared at the text until the words stopped looking like words. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to stay with me for a minute. Because I know some of you have been here. Not the same situation maybe, but that specific moment when something you thought was solid just isn't anymore. And you're sitting in a car in a school pickup line trying to figure out how to move your foot. I need you to know it gets somewhere. Not easy, not clean, but somewhere real. My name doesn't matter as much as the story. What matters is that 2 years ago I was a 31-year-old HVAC tech with a mortgage, a 6-year-old son, and a wife I thought I understood. Her name was, well, I'll call her what she became to me eventually, the woman who left. Her mother I'll call my mother-in-law because that title is its own kind of sentence. And the man she left with, I only ever knew him as the guy from her office. That's enough. Our son's name is Rowan. That one I use because Rowan is the whole point of this story. We'd been married 4 years when the cracks started, though I didn't see them as cracks at the time. I saw them as her being tired or stressed or going through something she'd eventually talk to me about. That's what I told myself. She worked in marketing for a firm downtown. Long hours, lot of travel, constant pressure to deliver campaigns that justified her salary. I understood that. I ran my own schedule, early mornings, long drives between jobs, home by 6 most nights to take over with Rowan. We had a rhythm. Or I thought we did. The first sign I ignored was the password change on her phone. About 8 months before the text. She said her old one was too easy to guess. I didn't push it. The second sign was a Tuesday in March when she said she was working late, but I drove past her office on the way home from a job in the same part of town, and the building was dark. I told myself I'd misread the address. I didn't push that either. The third sign was a weekend in April. She went to a conference in Phoenix. No conference materials came home, no lanyard, no folder, none of the normal debris a person carries back from 3 days of presentations and hotel coffee. I saw her suitcase go in the closet, and I noticed and I said nothing. I don't tell you this to make myself look oblivious. I tell you this because I think a lot of us notice things we're not ready to face yet. The mind protects itself. Mine protected itself for about 8 months too long. The text came on a Thursday in November. Rowan's pickup was at 3:15. By 3:17 I knew our savings account had $214 in it. She had taken just under $23,000. The account was joint. What she did was legal, technically. Joint account, her money too. That word, technically, became something I thought about a lot in the months that followed. I got Rowan. I put him in the car. He talked about what happened at recess for the whole drive home, and I answered on autopilot, some part of my brain managing the conversation while the rest of it was somewhere else entirely. He said, "Dad, you okay?" at one point, looking at me in the rear view. 6 years old. "I'm good, bud," I said. "Just tired." That night, after he was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and my laptop and the kind of quiet that's too quiet. I checked the account again in case I'd misread it. I hadn't. I opened the mortgage portal and looked at the next payment due. $1,847, 11 days out. I had $214 in savings and about $600 in checking. My next paycheck was a week away, and it wasn't going to cover both the mortgage and the credit card minimums. I called my father. It was almost 11 at night, and he picked up on the second ring, which told me he'd been awake, which meant he'd already heard something, which meant she'd contacted her mother, which meant the sides were already forming, while I was still sitting here trying to understand the board. "I heard," he said. "You know where she went?" "Her mother said she's with a friend, Dad." He was quiet for a moment. "Her mother said she needed space." I closed the laptop. "She emptied our bank account, Dad." Another silence. "I can lend you enough to cover the mortgage." That's the thing about fathers. They don't always have the words, but they show up. Mine showed up with $2,000 transferred by the time I woke up the next morning. No paperwork, no interest rate, just a text that said, "Love you, son. We'll figure it out." I went to work that Friday. Crawled under a house in 38-degree weather to replace a heat exchanger, and thought about nothing but ductwork for 4 hours. Sometimes the body knows what it needs. I needed to be somewhere that had a clear problem and a clear fix. She called 3 weeks later, not to apologize, to tell me she wanted to formalize the separation and that she'd been in touch with a lawyer. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm staying with a friend." "Is this the friend from your office?" She didn't answer that. "I want to talk about Rowan." "Then come talk about Rowan. I think we should do this through our lawyers." That sentence is when I understood what kind of divorce this was going to be. Not two people trying to separate with some remaining respect for what they'd had. Not even two people trying to be civil for their kid. It was going to be a fight, and she was already a month ahead of me in preparing for it. I called a lawyer Monday morning. His name doesn't matter, but he'd been doing family law for 22 years, and the first thing he said to me was, "Document everything you've done for your son since birth. School forms, pediatrician visits, pickups, sick days, bedtime, everything. Whatever you can prove, prove it." He slid a yellow legal pad across the desk. "Start tonight." I went home and I wrote for 2 hours. The preschool application I filled out alone because she was traveling. The parent-teacher conference I attended alone because she forgot. The ER visit when Rowan split his chin on the coffee table at age 4. I was the one who held him in the waiting room for 3 hours. My t-shirt bloody. Both of us watching cartoons on my phone while they figured out if he needed stitches. He did. 2 of them. I still have the discharge paperwork. I documented. That's what I did in the evenings after Rowan went to sleep, while the rest of the house was quiet and whatever grief I had was going to have to wait its turn. I made a record of a life I'd been living quietly, without an audience, because that's just what you do when you're the parent who's there. Her lawyer's first filing proposed a 50-50 custody split with her as primary residence. She had apparently been staying in a 2-bedroom apartment across town. The friend from the office was, according to what my mother-in-law eventually let slip to my aunt, who told my dad, who told me her boyfriend, had been for roughly 14 months. 14 months. I did the math backward. Rowan had just turned 5 when it started. I had been fixing heating systems, making dinner, and falling asleep on the couch with a first grader on my chest for 14 months while my wife was building a second life. I don't want to tell you that didn't knock me down for a while, because it did. There was a week in January where I sent Rowan to my dad's for a long weekend and I did not leave my house except to get food. I watched things I don't remember. I ate badly. I sat in the dark. I gave myself that week and then I got up because Rowan was coming home Sunday and he needed dinner when he walked in the door. That's the thing nobody tells you about surviving a thing like this when you have kids. You don't get to fall apart all at once. You fall apart in pieces, in the spaces between their needs, and then you put yourself back together enough to function until the next space opens up. It's slow, it's inefficient, but it works. The first custody hearing was in February. I wore the one suit I owned, charcoal gray, bought for my cousin's wedding 3 years earlier. My lawyer was calm. Hers was aggressive, in that practiced, professional way that isn't personal but is designed to feel like it is. Her lawyer argued that she had historically been the primary emotional provider for Rowan. I watched the words leave his mouth, and I thought about the discharge paperwork in my file at home. I thought about the Tuesday ER visit and the preschool application, and the 2,000 mornings I had gotten Rowan dressed while she was still sleeping. My lawyer put me on the stand and walked me through the documentation. Not dramatically, just, "Did you do this? Yes. Do you have a record of it? Yes. Here it is." Over and over, quiet and factual, a stack of evidence built from nothing fancier than showing up. Her lawyer pushed back on my work schedule. HVAC, he implied, meant unpredictable hour, early mornings, physically demanding work. How could I manage a child with that kind of schedule? I said, "I've been managing it for 6 years. The schedule didn't change when my wife left. I adjusted it when Rowan needed me, and I've been doing that since he was born." The judge didn't rule that day. She said she needed to review the documentation. We went home. I picked Rowan up from school. He asked if we could have grilled cheese for dinner. We had grilled cheese. 3 weeks after the hearing, her lawyer filed a motion challenging my financial stability. The mortgage was behind. I had gotten current after my dad's loan, but she somehow had records of the brief period when it wasn't. The argument was that my financial situation made me a less stable primary custodian. This is the part that made my lawyer set down his pen and look at me over the top of his glasses. "She emptied the joint account," I said. "I know. That's the reason the mortgage was behind. I know. And the judge is going to know too." What followed was a discovery process, financial records, bank statements, transfer logs, everything. My $214 balance the day after she left, and the $22,900 that had been in that account the day before. The timeline was not ambiguous. Her lawyer pivoted. The money was hers too. It was a joint account. She had every right. My lawyer said, she did. But the court might find the timing and the amount relevant to the question of who created the financial instability we're now discussing. I sat in that conference room and I felt something clarify. Not anger, exactly. Something cooler than anger. The understanding that whatever happened from here was going to be determined by documents, by records, by the actual verifiable weight of what each of us had done. And in that particular contest, I was not going to lose. My mother-in-law called me in March. I almost didn't answer. We had not spoken since before the text, and the things I had to say to her were not things I was ready to say calmly. I answered. She started with, I want you to know I didn't know what she was planning. I didn't believe her, but I let her talk. She said her daughter was going through something. She said she hoped we could find a way to keep this civil for Rowan's sake, She said the man from the office had apparently told her daughter he wasn't interested in a serious commitment once the reality of the situation set in. I let that land for a second. So he left her, I said. She didn't answer directly. She's been having a hard time. I thought about my week in the dark house in January. I thought about my dad wiring me $2,000 at 11 o'clock at night. I thought about Rowan asking from the back seat if I was okay. I hope she figures it out, I said. And I meant it, surprisingly. Not warmly, but genuinely. Because what she did to me and what she was going to have to live with were now her problems, not mine. The final custody ruling came in May. Primary physical custody to me. She received parenting time every other weekend and 1 evening per week. The judge cited the documentation, the financial record, the established pattern of day-to-day care. I was standing outside the courthouse on the front steps when my lawyer read me the summary. It was warm for May, the kind of day that's been planning to be summer for a while. I called my dad. He answered on the first ring. We got it, I said. He exhaled. This long, slow exhale that told me he'd been holding that breath for months. Okay, he said. Okay. I picked Rowan up from school at 3:15. Normal. The whole thing was normal. He got in the car and told me about something that happened in art class, and I drove home with both hands on the wheel and the window cracked because the air felt good. We had dinner. I made the pasta he likes, the one with the butter and the parmesan, and nothing else because he is 6 and opinions are strong. He ate 2 bowls. We watched part of a movie. I put him to bed. After he fell asleep, I sat on the porch for a while. The neighborhood was quiet. Somebody down the block had their sprinklers running. I had 214 8 months ago, and a text message that was supposed to end me. And tonight I had a mortgage that was current, a kid who'd eaten 2 bowls of pasta, and a custody ruling in my file. She texted me that evening, the first real message since the initial one. She said she was sorry. She said she hadn't understood what she was doing. She said she wanted to be part of Rowan's life. I thought about it for a long time before I wrote back. That's up to you, I said. The schedule is in the parenting plan. Show up when you're supposed to. That's how you be part of his life. I don't know if she will. I think some people understand what they've lost only after they can't get it back in the shape it used to be. I think she is probably one of those people. And I think Rowan will be okay either way, because okay isn't something that happens to a kid from the outside. It's something you build around them, one regular day at a time. Grilled cheese and pasta and homework and the same bedtime every night until the structure is strong enough that they don't need everything to go right to feel safe. They just need you to be there. I'm there. I was there when the money was gone, and I was there when the judge read the ruling, and I'll be there tonight when he gets up for water at 2 a.m. and pads into the hallway in his socks. That's the thing nobody tells you about starting over with $200 and a kid and a text message that was supposed to knock you out. The starting over is hard, but the staying is easy, because staying is just showing up again tomorrow. And I know how to do that. I've been doing it since he was born.